So Daniel Ellsberg, the Pentagon Papers whistleblower, has just passed away. I'm saddened to learn. He was 92 years old, and he discovered a few months ago that he had pancreatic cancer, and it was inoperable. And his family have just confirmed that he died without pain and surrounded by love and etc. So that's good to know. And I mean, I'm very sad that he passed away, because he's such a pivotal figure in politics and history, and I kind of wanted to go through some of the things that he did, because he was basically an analyst working for the Rand Corporation, for the Pentagon, right? And through the Rand Corporation, and he was sent to Vietnam to gather data about the war and about guerrilla tactics, and he came to the conclusion that this war is unwinnable, and I think pretty much everybody understood that. But the American public were being told one thing, or the world rather is being told one thing, and of course inside the United States, from where from Washington, from where this war was being waged, there's lots of lies and deceit, and I mean, you had in the end 58,000 American soldiers killed, I think 300,000 wounded. And then even worse, you have about 1 million fighters, so Viet Cong from the north killed. I think 2 million from the south killed, right, from South Vietnam, and also the civilians, paying the worst price in not just Vietnam, but in Cambodia and in Laos. And Daniel Ellsberg, his only regret, and he said this many times publicly, his only regret is that he did not leak these papers sooner, because then people would have found out what was happening in Vietnam, right? What the Nixon administration was trying to hide. And I just wanted to read through his witness testimony, not during his own trial, because his own trial, by the way, this went to the Supreme Court, right? And there's this whole issue about freedom of speech, because they wanted to publish what he had found, right, what he had leaked, and the Nixon administration was trying to say that, well, no, you can't do that because it would damage national security. How many times have we heard this phrase, right? So they ruled in the paper's favor, and they were allowed to publish, and they still tried to lock him up on espionage charges, right, using the Espionage Act of 1917. Now, the thing is that this case was thrown out in the end because the government tried to break into his psychiatrist's office. Okay, so again, just to be clear, this is the government breaking into Daniel Ellsberg's records at his psychiatrist's office, and they were caught. So the whole thing was thrown out, and he made some very important revelations about how he was treated, right? Because this factors in a lot to the Assange case, right? So I covered the Assange case, and when during these 4 weeks, every single day you had somebody else giving testimony, and Daniel Ellsberg was one of those people. So he came to Assange's defense, and he made it very clear that he supports what WikiLeaks has done. He viewed it just as important as his own disclosures. Okay, so he said that if what I did with Vietnam was important, well, what Assange and WikiLeaks did with Iraq and Afghanistan is just as important, right? And he obviously argued and advocated for Assange to be released, right? And he gave some insight as to how Assange would be treated were he to be extradited to the United States, especially given that Assange is being charged with the same Espionage Act. Okay, so here's I pulled up his testimony. This is I actually the day when he gave his testimony, I covered the whole trial here on the channel, and he saw my video, Daniel Ellsberg, and he I think he shared it and gave it a nod. So I take great pride in that. Here I'm going to pull up the written testimony. This is thanks to Tariq Haddad. So he has a great archive on his website. Really, really, really exhaustive. So let me just show you what Daniel Ellsberg said, okay? So he's trying to give you some background information, right? He was taking papers from his safe at the Rand Corporation, one page at a time, collated the documents as they came off the Xerox machine, and he said he cut off the top secret classifications from the top and the bottom of all the pages. He says, quote, "I knew then that my actions could result in my going to prison, but I believe that the public had to know about this." He also says, "I considered my actions then and now to be essential in the actions of a patriot. Without publication in the press, it would have proved impossible for the content of the Pentagon papers to be placed in the public domain. I spent over a year and a half attempting to get hearings in Congress without success." And then here he says that he had possession in his safe in the Pentagon, quote, "documents which gave lie to claims of an unequivocal, unprovocated attack on U.S. destroyers in the Tonkin Gulf. False claims about the incidents in the Gulf of Tonkin led to the passage of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution by Congress, which gave President Johnson legal justification for engaging in war against North Vietnam. I was later told by Senator Morse, one of the two senators who had voted against it, that if I had given him that evidence at the time, instead of waiting until 1969, when I provided it to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the resolution would have been voted down. I have long regretted not releasing the documents in 1964 or in the next few months, and it is a heavy burden for me to bear." Right? So that's very important because as he mentions the Gulf of Tonkin incident, right? This was just a lie that oh my God, the Americans were just randomly attacked, and going into Vietnam is nothing but self-defense. Is a total lie. I mean, come on, this is long been debunked, right? And there was no unprovocated attack of U.S. destroyers, right? And he disclosed this, and of course, bear this in mind every time you hear about, the United States has to go to this country, to Afghanistan, to Iraq, and to, et cetera, et cetera. It's always self-defense, right? Bear that in mind. It's very important to keep in mind. So he goes down here and he says that he has studied Julian Assange's situation and the subject matter of the WikiLeaks publications in 2010 and 2011 concerning the conduct of the Afghan and Iraq wars and detentions in Guantanamo Bay and U.S. diplomatic cables, commenting upon aspects of U.S. actions. Quote, "I've observed the extraordinary breadth and depth of these revelations, revealing as they do the reality of the consequences of war. The exposure of such would be imperative to bring about any alteration of U.S. government policy. I have followed closely the impact of a number of those publications and consider them to be amongst the most important truthful revelations of hidden criminal state behavior that have been made public in U.S. history. My own actions in relation to the Pentagon Papers and the consequences of their publication have been acknowledged to have performed such a radical change of understanding. I view the WikiLeaks publications of 2010 and 2011 to be of comparable importance." Okay, so that's exactly what he said. He views Assange's work to be of comparable importance. This is very, very, very vital to understand because the Espionage Act is a political tool. That's why they used it against him, used it against Snowden, used it against Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, and it's always the same court, by the way, right? It's they call it Espionage Court because all of the indictments are issued out of this Eastern District Court for the Eastern District in Virginia. It's something important that he revealed is that you're not allowed a public interest defense. Okay, so when he was taken to court, they told him that it doesn't matter that you think you released these documents for the good of the American people, or more importantly, for the good of people in Vietnam who are who are facing the brunt of this U.S. foreign policy, who are really on the receiving end and paying the ultimate price for what the United States is doing in Vietnam, right? They don't care. There is no public interest defense. You could say that, you know, Daniel Ellsberg or Julian Assange, for that matter, it doesn't, either one, because they're being hit with the same law. They could have saved the entire human race and the planet from an alien attack, whatever you want to say, and it would not matter. You're not allowed to say it in court. Nothing good that you did by leaking these documents is admissible in court. Goodbye. I mean, how do you talk about a democracy and about you know, truth and a free press and all these things and have this as a law? It makes no sense. It makes no sense, right? There's no room for whistleblowing or you know, exposing criminal state behavior, right? Or state criminal behavior, rather. Yeah, there's no room for it. So, you know, it's not anymore about, oh, look at what the state is doing. Look at how these people are killing millions in Vietnam. That's not the crime anymore. The crime is that you told people that we are killing millions of people in Vietnam. This is madness, right? Same thing with Assange, if you want, right? Same thing. It's the same principle. So now telling the public, telling the world about the crimes becomes the crime. I mean, there's no logic, there's no moral, you know, morality, there's nothing here. And so, you know, you cannot reconcile having a democracy or a so-called democracy with laws like this. You cannot reconcile the two. And so that's why I think it's very important to point out always, look how many people came and testified on Assange's behalf. Look, you know, Noam Chomsky, you got all these, forget the doctors who are saying that he's too sick to be extradited. Forget the people that are telling you how bad the U.S. prison system is, that he's going to be put in like a hellhole, you know, in Colorado. Just the stature, right, of not the man, but the acts. And you have people like this coming in and testifying and advocating for his actions and telling the judge, look how important this is. Look how vital it is. It changes public understanding and it needs to be in the public domain. These are things that have to be heard. And right now, right as I'm speaking to you, you're going to have tons of websites, almost every news website in the world, putting out an article to talk about Daniel Ellsberg and say that he's passed away at the age of 92, which is great. And it's, you know, people give him credit for being a whistleblower. They say it was the right thing to do. You showed how they were killing all these millions. Well, don't wait for it to be so late. You don't have to wait you know, so long. And Daniel Ellsberg, you know, in his case, no one waited until now to recognize the value of his acts. But my point is that I don't think they're going to tell you that he stood up for Assange. Maybe Snowden, they might mention in a few articles, but they have to tell you, because if he's a good man and what he did is good, then listen to who else he calls good, and who, you know, what other acts he describes as being valorous and you know, being vital for the public, for people to know. Listen to what he has to say then. You know, remember that as well. And you don't have to wait so long. History does, you know, the public, you don't have to wait so long to recognize the acts of someone, you know. And in the case of Assange, you don't have to wait 10, 20 years, 30 years to recognize the value of what he's done, right? That's all I wanted to say. So rest in peace.